We're still inside RStudio. I'm going to give another quick overview of this document that we're going to be using as a recap, and I just want to show you an example of a R Markdown document and why we even use R Markdown documents, or just basically two uses of R Markdown documents. So like I said before, every R Markdown document starts with something that looks like this. It's just the settings of the document. You can just leave it alone, don't touch it. Then inside the document there are code chunks and there are parts that is just normal text. And in RStudio, very conveniently, it creates this highlight effect when it's a code chunk so that you can see which parts are code that's going to produce some sort of an action and a result, and which parts are just normal text. Also, like I said before, the hashtag in the text parts, that's for headings. So this is a level 1 heading, this is a level 2 heading. If there are hashtags inside a code chunk, I'm just scrolling down to another one. If there's a hashtag inside a code chunk, that is for commenting. Like I said before, this is code. This will produce some sort of an action or a result. This is a comment. It's not going to produce anything. There will not be any action if I run it, but it is just it's a comment. It's when I want to talk to you, or sometimes you want to talk to yourself. You want to just write comments for yourself so that you remember what your thinking was for why you wrote the code like that, or something you must check. You can just quickly write a comment for yourself. All code languages have that, and it's a very useful feature. Also, like I said before, let's just go back to this one, to this code chunk. If I write 1 + 1 like I wrote before, if we run that code, Control Enter, so your cursor must be in the same line that you want to run, then you press Control and Enter, you would have seen the result showing up here. So this is the script, it contains the code, we run it from here, and then over here it shows us I ran this code, or says I ran this code 1 + 1, and the answer of that is 2. Like I said before, this 1 in the square brackets that you see there is it's just a line number. It's just the first line of the result that gets printed out. Sometimes there are many lines of results, and then it just numbers it for you, so it's easier for you to refer to it again. But the result of the code here is the 2. The whole point, or one of the points of a R Markdown script, is that you can export it. So this whole document we can export from here, and then it can create another type of document. So it can either create a PDF file or it can create an HTML file. So that's one of the great uses of R Markdown documents. So just using it in RStudio like this is already very handy. You can write text, I can write a whole bunch of instructions and things here for you. Then we can have some code that does the things we talked about here. We can explain. Let me just delete that again. We can run some things and get some results about what we explained. Then we can explain again, or just make notes about what we did or want to do. So that's already very handy to use an R Markdown file inside RStudio like this. But what's even more handy is that we can export it, like I said, either as a PDF or an HTML file. So for our purposes, we're not going to use exporting as PDF. That's sometimes a little bit tricky and can cause errors. So we're not going to go there. For our assignment, we're just going to export it as HTML file. So for those of you who don't know what an HTML file is, that's just the normal file that you open in your browser. Like when you surf the internet, all of those are HTML files. So whatever browser you use, if it's Firefox, then basically we can export this R Markdown file into an HTML file, and we can open it with a browser like Firefox. So that's what I would like to show you now. So if we go to File, Open File, you also have this file called example.rmd. So we want to open that now because I just want to show you quickly what it looks like when we export it. So select that file, open it. Then what you're going to see here is that it's going to open in a new tab here. So your other file isn't gone, it's still there, but it just created a new tab. So that's also very handy. You can have several files open in different tabs here in your script window. So this file is a completely different R Markdown file now, but like you can see, it also starts with whatever the header is, and then it has some text and some code chunks like the other one. Okay, so this file is much shorter, but like I showed you before, we can also, if we use this little triangle, if I click on that, it collapses the whole section 1. You know that it's collapsed because of this little blue block. And then there's also section 2, and I can collapse that. So it's just easier to see here in a much shorter file. So if I expand section 1 again, you can see, let's expand section 2 as well. Scroll down a little bit. So this is the whole file. It's a very short file. Over here, it's going to demonstrate to you what the different hashtags do. So over here, this is section 1. It says this is a level 1 heading. Then there's a subheading that has 2 hashtags. This is a level 2 heading. Then it says this thing is a list. This is thing 1 in the list, thing 2. There's 2 hashtags again, so that's another level 2 heading. Then this is normal text followed by output from the first code chunk. So this is the first code chunk, chunk 1. And there's some code in it that's going to run. And then we'll move to section 2. So that's the whole file. So here at the top you see there's a button called knit. So that's a thing I can perform. That's how I will export this file as an HTML file. So if I press knit, if I click on that button, something's going to happen. You're going to see there's a R Markdown tab opened up. Because it's a short file, it all happens very quickly. So it's done. It basically ran all the code in the file and put it into this HTML file. So you can see here, it's called example.html. That's the file we created when we pushed the knit button. And just gonna maximize, and then this is the file we created. So if you remember what we had in our R Markdown file, this will look familiar to you. Basically it starts here with section 1. So this is where there was the 1 hashtag, and it said section 1, this is a level 1 heading. So as you can see, there's no hashtag now. It interpreted the hashtag as the font size. So you can see the font size here is the biggest, then there were 2 hashtags here, and this font size now is a little bit smaller because it's a level 2 heading. Then this was the list we talked about, this was another level 2 heading, this was normal text. And here our first code chunk starts. So as you can see, it shows us which code was first. This is the first line of code in the code chunk. This is the result. This was the second line of code in the code chunk, and this was the result. And then moving to section 2, and then there was some code there. It shows us what it was, and then this code happened to make a plot, and then it shows us the plot inside the same HTML file. So that's the second very useful thing about the R Markdown, that you can export it as HTML and then into a very nice format. And we're going to do that at the end of our assignment. You're going to export your own HTML file and it's going to look very nice. Okay, so that's all I wanted to show you. We're not going to use example RMD again, but you can also open it. You can press knit and see what it creates for you, and then look forward to creating your own HTML file when your assignment is done. Okay, I just closed that file by pressing on the little cross there. I just closed it. We're not going to use it again.